can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's your boy Ernie, the Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. So before we get into the video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of my videos. And also, if you can hook a brother up, hit that like button because it helps me on the algorithm tremendously. Like, if I could get any video to 1,000 likes, that is guaranteed at least 10,000 views. If those 10,000 people like that video, then guess what? That's even more views. So yeah, please help me out with this, because it will not only help me find more viewers like you, it'll help you find more videos just like these. This video, we're going to be talking about Uncanny X-Men #6. This is going to be the issue that sets up the upcoming crossover event, Raid on Graymalkin. This is effectively the first crossover of the From the Ashes era, where we're going to be having Gail Simone's Uncanny X-Men crossing up with Jed MacKay's Adjectiveless X-Men. Kind of funny how this is all set up too, because man, it seems like it was forever ago this was announced, and here we are. We're already getting ready to dive in. But this is basically the X-Men's version of a Civil War light, and this isn't going to be like a major epic crossover event. It's just going to be a couple of issues of Uncanny X-Men, couple of issues of Adjectiveless X-Men, and they're just going to go back and forth, and then that's going to be it. Though I do have it on good authority that we are going to be seeing an actual legit X-Men crossover early next year sometime. But we know that the raid on Graymalkin is going to be Rogue having an ideological difference with Cyclops. We know the Cyclops is running a more militant outfit in the X-Men up in Alaska, and Rogue is running something that's more like a family operation. We actually see a lot of it in this issue, that where Rogue and Gambit are starting to feel like parents to the Outliers. They effectively have children of their own, even though technically these are not their children. They're kind of learning that they're going to have to treat them as if they're their own children. They're practically raising them, making them go to school, and actually having them learn how to use their abilities and trying to show them, you know, what's the right and wrong way to go about doing things. And we only really get it so much in terms of Rogue and Gambit's interactions with the character Calico, but yeah, a lot of it is mom and pop vibes. Like, Rogue is the mama, to the point Calico even refers to her as such. Now, granted, it's really just based more on the fact that Calico as a child was browbeat so much by her mother that she just instinctively, when Rogue snaps at her, that, you know, she immediately just starts thinking about her mother. She's not necessarily saying that Rogue is her mama or saying it even so much as a term of endearment, but just it's more that she's responding in such a way that she's like, oh, I respect authority. Like, my mother was very authoritative with me. She lorded her power over me. You just did the same because I was not listening. And in this case, yes, Calico was not listening. She did not want to hear out anything that anyone had to say. She doesn't want to be thought of as a mutant. She doesn't want to go to school. She has a bad bit of PTSD when it comes to the things that she's being told to do that her mother used to force her to do or tried to beat into her skull. She's just not responding well to it. And Rogue realizes it and sees that the only thing that Calico really responds to, at least in terms of, you know, situations when, you know, she's really worked up, is someone just stepping up to her and being like, hey, no, this is how it's gonna be. But that's not the only way to deal with Calico, as Gambit proves. He realizes that she just needs somebody who understands her, someone to talk to show her how things are, and Gambit here proves that he has the chops. It's not to say we've never seen Gambit show that he has dad qualities before, but I feel like here he's actually showcased. There's actually a lot of that going on with some characters in this issue, some on some more minor levels, but I like what's going on here with this. I like that, you know, this, where, once again, as I said earlier, Cyclops' X-Men team feels more like a militant freedom force, whereas the Uncanny X-Men, they just seem more like a family just trying to get by. So I like the dynamic between these two books, because it means you can get something different in each one of them. If you want that family aspect, boom, Gail Simone's got you. If you want that militant Cyclops vibe, Jed's got you. If you want both of them, shit, you got both of them. And I like that. I like that there's that, you know, kind of dichotomy between the two. But yeah, I love what they're setting up here, and also like that we do get a little bit more in touch with the past of Calico. Her past is everything I think we kind of knew it was. Her mother manipulated her, gaslit her on the regular, and we even saw that she also was very overly protective of her daughter's affections. Not necessarily like, oh, I want to make sure this person doesn't hurt you. She didn't want her daughter to be able to rely on or connect with anyone. So the fact that Gambit is able to get through to her this issue, the fact that Rogue is even able to get to her on some level, is kind of amazing. Because there's a point where Calico reveals that she came from money, so obviously her parents had means. They could of course afford for them to have horses and a stable hand and a groundskeeper and all this other stuff. And as it turns out, there was someone that worked in the stables who had revealed to Calico that they had a daughter about her age and was kind of implying that you should be friends. It didn't come off as anything like creepy or groomers. Like, no, it was like, this was a guy who had a daughter who had similar interests to Calico, and he just wanted them to become friends. There's nothing wrong with it. It's actually honestly kind of normal. And leave it to Calico's mother to turn into this selfish, incredibly narcissistic, and I would even dare say emotional vampire of a woman, and go as far as to get this guy fired, all for the crime of trying to help Calico have more friends. Lying and saying that he had showed himself inappropriately to her and her, all this other stuff, like literally telling a lie to ruin a man's life just so that her daughter would only be able to rely on her. And that has been instilled in Calico, and something that is actually, because of the way that Gale is doing this and the way that things are kind of being set up. Granted, I still think Calico is the endling, just because while yes, Rogue is saying pretty much right now that she thinks that Calico is the endling, while I am very much inclined to agree, especially based on that bonus page we saw of Calico and her sitting there holding her head in her hands and crying because basically the endling is supposed to be the last mutant alive. Well, yeah, it makes even more clear that it's probably her, but at the same time, I still think that whenever a writer is showing you something kind of early, kind of tipping the handle early, it's almost kind of like taking an option off the table sometimes. It depends on the writer. It really does depend on the writer, and I don't think that Gale is that kind of a writer. I don't think that she's gonna tip the hand and give the whole game away and then walk it all back. I just don't see her doing that. But I definitely feel like now I'm almost just a little bit hesitant to say that maybe she is. I still don't think it should be Deathgasm or Ransom. I just feel like they're almost too obvious. And I will also say Jitter kind of shot to the top of the list just because of some things that happen in this issue where when they're going to school, the kids that are there, the normies, are bullying them, more specifically Jitter. She's the one who's being focused on the most. One of the little shit ass kids at the school keeps messing with her because of her stuttering. And I'm not gonna lie, I did appreciate how Ransom and Deathgasm stepped up to the plate in that regard, and how Deathgasm showed he actually does have a capacity to care about the people around him, something that Ransom calls him out for. But I love the fact that everyone is, they're treating each other the way that I feel like Gen Z people tend to stand up for each other. It's reads almost exactly like real living, breathing Gen Z characters. So I dig it. I think it's pretty cool. I like the fact that they're not taking any trash from the humans at the school, and I appreciate it too that the principal let them know that they were safe around him. He even flashes the Midnight M to them. Whether that means he's a mutant or just mutant friendly is another story altogether. I don't think that actually gets addressed at any point. But ultimately what this all leads to, while Ransom and Deathgasm are trying to get revenge on the kids for messing with Jitter, it's at this moment that Calico gets abducted by the Graymalkin prison guards, the basically mutant catchers, if you want to use slave parlance. Without really thinking too much about it, I wondered if this was maybe someone in Calico's family, because I think we know both her parents are gone. They died in the fire that burned her house down, and she just kind of left them in there to die. But I wonder if this might have been, potentially a situation where maybe her mom did survive and is working with Dr. Ellis on some level, and having her brought to her. But no, this is actually just Dr. Ellis just doing her thing, and she doesn't seem to care word one how Calico is returned to her, but she is being taken in and will be detained at Graymalkin prison, which kind of leads credence to why Rogue is flying off the handle in the raid on Graymalkin solicits, and lets us know exactly why she decided to not listen to Cyclops about holding off on Graymalkin until they could come up with a unified plan. Another reason why too is because of Jubilee. During this issue, Jubilee and Nightcrawler go out to get groceries, and in the midst of all this, shenanigans happen, and Nightcrawler teleports off to save a little girl from getting run over by a Mack truck. All in the midst of this, the mutant catchers at Graymalkin are also there to pick up Jubilee. More specifically, this time, while it's not just regular soldiers, it's actually Siren, Blob, and Toad, which is almost kind of weird. It's like Dr. Ellis put together her own brotherhood of evil mutants, sort of, in this particular regard. But these, once again, as we saw before, these are all mutants who have been indoctrinated and conditioned. They want to have better standing in a better place, so they're basically doing what they're doing to try not to be tortured or experimented on or hurt or mistreated in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I don't know, it's very telling. And it also sucks too in some regards. Not saying from a story element, but like it just sucks from an emotional standpoint, because that especially after the Krakoan era, in terms of characters like Blob and Toad, they had come so far. And you could tell that, maybe more so in Blob's case, he was way more into the dream of Krakoa, and he believed. Toad got screwed over by the Krakoan dream, so you could kind of see where maybe he might be a little bitter. He basically took the fall for Magneto. He took the fall for Magneto during the Trial of Magneto story arc, where Wanda Maximoff was, quotey fingers killed off, which technically she was, but I mean, it wasn't Toad who did it. It was Scarlet Witch. She unalived herself, and Magneto conspired with her to make it look like someone actually murdered her. And Toad took the fall so that Magneto wouldn't get put in the hole. And he did it for the cause, because he was loyal to Magneto to a fault. And he suffered for it. He got thrown into the pit. And yeah, he just never really recovered emotionally or mentally from that, I don't think. And we even saw in Victor Laval's Sabretooth in the Exile series, he never really was right ever since. Even though it seemed like he found his place among, the Exiles, maybe less so Sabretooth. But in this case, yeah, Blob, he was a fairly nice dude. Yeah, he had turned over a whole new leaf, and now he's working as a mutant catcher to catch his own kind. But Siren, I think, is even the more surprising one, because Siren is usually such a down-to-earth and nice person. This isn't her, but she has been indoctrinated to the point, and we actually saw a taste of this in the earlier issues of Uncanny X-Men, that she just wants safety. She doesn't want to be mistreated. She wants to have some semblance of normalcy to get back to being okay again. So that's why she's doing this. So none of these people are doing this out of any sense of malice, is basically what I'm trying to say here. But what I think is kind of wild about it too is that Jubilee has been captured, and it makes things even more wild and zany, just based on the fact that one thing I think has not really been brought up is where Shogo is. I would forgive anyone for not remembering, but for the last decade or more, actually probably say decade and a half, Jubilee has been the adopted mother of a young child by the name of Shogo, who by all intents and purposes is just a normal, regular human. He's never given off any inclination that he's a mutant. Jubilee has been his mother for quite some time, and during the Krakoan era, he was around a lot. She took him on their adventures when she was running around with Excalibur, and then eventually she ended up leaving him at home because he was getting into shenanigans, getting turned into a dragon, and all these other crazy things. But now, with everything having fallen apart, we don't really know where Shogo is in all this. So not only does Shogo not have his mother around, he really doesn't have her around now, because she has been captured. That's probably yet another reason why Rogue is flying off the handle and going straight to Graymalkin to put hands on Dr. Ellis. So there's that. There are some good things that are coming out of this. I mean, yes, there's a lot of bad stuff that's happening here that's leading into the raid on Graymalkin's story arc. We see the Nightcrawler has made a new friend, which I think is pretty cool. I mentioned earlier, Nightcrawler ran off to go save a little girl from getting hit by a Mack truck. Well, he actually gets to have an interaction with the child's mother. And it's one of the few instances, I think probably one of the only instances I can remember that I've ever seen. I know it's not the absolute first time it's happened, but this is definitely, the most recent time that's happened that Nightcrawler has saved someone's life, or, the life of someone that another person really cares about. Case in point, mother, child. The woman at first seems really angry with Nightcrawler, like we're gonna go back to the well again of, oh, you saved my daughter, you saved my child, oh my God, but oh, get the hell away, get away from my daughter, you monster, we're not doing that. I actually thought that's where it was going, but Gail, I should have known better to trust Gail on this. She wasn't going to go back to that well, as so many other writers have done before. But no, she actually goes a different direction. This woman is actually happy. Like she is yelling at him at first, but I think it's just really more the adrenaline at this point. But she does actually lean in close, and Nightcrawler says, "Oh, you probably think I'm some kind of a monster. I'm not." And she says, "No, you're not a monster. You're not a devil. You're an angel." And she gives him a peck on the cheek, and both the woman and the daughter seem to actually genuinely be affectionate towards Nightcrawler. And it's kind of funny considering just before all this happened, when Jubilee was musing about missing children, more alluding to her missing Shogo, and we know Nightcrawler not really having any children of his own. The prospect of him being a father, now almost immediately he finds himself in a situation where, not saying this will happen, but it does seem like this woman's kind of sweet on him just a little bit. I feel like this is not a character who's just gonna show up and never appear again. At least I don't think so. This character says some very telling things, so I get the impression she's a character we're going to see more of. The fact that when the police officer tries to arrest Nightcrawler and she tells Nightcrawler to go away, she tells the police officer that she's going to make his life a living hell for the next few decades. That's, at first, I could easily see somebody mistaking that as just general, oh, this is a white woman using her care and energy to protect someone else that is marginalized. That's all this is. No, I think it's a little bit more than that, because it was the wording she used. I'm getting the impression this woman is not just some regular citizen. I feel like this might be somebody who is a pillar of the community, possibly even a pillar in the local politic of Louisiana. So who knows? We'll have to play the waiting game on that one to see, but everything else in this issue I thought was great. I actually really dug the fact that they dug into Wolverine's PTSD, which I think is something that doesn't get talked about enough. Wolverine's lived so long and has endured so much loss that he's going through PTSD. He doesn't even realize he's going through PTSD, and probably largely because of the era that he grew up in and just how solitary he has become. The fact that it's the one thing that his healing factor doesn't affect, and it's his emotional state, his heart and his mind, his soul. His healing factor doesn't affect those things. So that's the only way you could truly hurt him. And the fact that we saw at the very beginning of the series, he had lost an old war buddy. And, the reason why he's been so standoffish with everyone on the team, the reason why he's wanted to be by himself, it's because he's going through some shit and he doesn't know how to deal with it. And he kind of, you can tell he wants to deal with it the way that he normally would, to distance himself from people. But you can also see him trying in his own weird way to open the door back up, wanting to carry on the buried bottle tradition with Gambit and Rogue, but Rogue actually seeing it for what it is, and he's trying to escape the pain and suffering that he's feeling on the inside. I thought that was a really cool moment, and also a really nice thing to see between Rogue and Wolverine, because they have such a storied friendship just based on the fact that Wolverine, like many of the other X-Men, did not like Rogue when she first came to the team, largely because of what she did to Carol Danvers. But over the years, they have grown to become such close friends that seeing them in this moment is just really heartwarming. Yeah, this was something I thought was really cool. I thought it was really cool, and I like what they're doing with this issue. I can't wait to see what happens, because we're gonna get into with, I believe, is X-Men number 8 by Jed MacKay, where we'll get to pick everything back up, see what's going on with Calico and Jubilee, whether or not Dr. Ellis is gonna try and turn them the way that they did with, you know, Siren and Blob and Toad. We'll have to wait and see on that. Raid on Graymalkin, while it's being kind of billed as a mutant civil war between two rival X factions, two rival X teams, I feel like there's a lot more to the story we're not seeing, and I don't think it's going to be quite as clear cut as that. I mean, yeah, are they going to throw hands at first? Sure. I'm pretty sure Cyclops' squad and Rogue squad are going to do the dance, but I don't think it's going to be for the reasons people think.